We are unmuted. And we're live right now.
Good evening and welcome to the April 11th Council Agenda Council Committee of the Whole. Members of the public are able to attend the Township office in person to speak to any report on the agenda or register with the Clerk's Division in advance of attending electronically. Members of the public who have registered to attend electronically have been provided with a Zoom link to join the meeting this evening and have indicated to staff which item they would like to participate in. Those who are present in person will be able to speak to any staff report on the agenda when it is reached and will be asked to approach the podium to speak. Please note that all speakers are provided with no more than 5 minutes to address the staff report. The clerk will time each speaker and advise the chair when the 5-minute time limit is up. Could you be at 4 minutes so we can run the speaker? Thank you. Members of the public have been provided with the following methods to watch and participate in this open meeting electronically. First off, attend the Township office located at 2958 Greenfield Road in Dumfries Room. Second, watch the live stream by accessing the meeting on the Township's YouTube page. Third, attend electronically to observe the meeting or to speak to an item on the agenda. Fourth, submit written comments to the Clerk's Division that have been provided to the Mayor and Council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. I'd now like to call this meeting to order, and can I have the approval of the agenda, please?
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Roman, the council adopt the 11/2023 committee of the whole agenda is presented with the following addendums. Number one, add 2 pieces of correspondence received for item 6.1, report number FIN 09/2023, reopening discussion on the 10-year capital forecast 2023-2032.
All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. I'd now like to do the Indigenous Territory acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe and the Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in Canada. But we can't reconcile until we learn to respect. And I think that's what the Indigenous people want most of all, is that respect. And they have earned it and deserved it. So I'd like us all to pause for a second as we reflect on this. Thank you. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Councilor Rose.
I have a disclosure on item 7.1.
And reason?
The reason being that there was a report in there from Waddell Engineering and my course.
Thank you. Okay. We need to adjourn into committee of the whole, please. Councilor Rose.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Holloman, that council adjourned to sit as the meeting.
All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. First item for discussion. This is the only item in the finance function area. This report number FIN 09/2023, reopening and discussion on the 10-year capital forecast 2023 to 2032. I believe there's a spokesperson from the Air Centennials that registered to speak, and I'll ask them to the public. So, Air Centennials, like to speak first. Come to the podium. You have 5 minutes.
Madam Mayor, council members, and council staff. My name is Don Eby. We are standing on what used to be my hayfield. The Air Centennial Hockey Club was founded 40 years ago when a group of 20 residents from Air surrounding area recognized the need for youth and for opportunity beyond minor hockey. My father was one of those founders. I've been involved serving as assistant GM, I'm currently one of the new number of hardworking board members. The Centennials continue to be a community-owned team. The club began as a junior D franchise, then moved to junior C, winning 2 provincial championships, and now a junior B franchise. We have come a long way, filling many seats in this arena on game nights. We have very much benefited from support from the community, sponsors, to volunteers, to fans, and of course, talented hockey players, coaches, and staff. The NDC is a first-class facility, the envy of many communities, and is a draw for top-end players. Adding a finishing touch with a second ice pad would be an additional draw. For example, special tournaments such as the Silver Stick, figure skating competitions. It's all about long-term vision. I recall the day when the late Dave Dance, who was counselor, approached us at the ACC, wonder if we had any extra, if we had any, about 30 acres of land to spare. Set my wheels turning, and after a meeting with my parents and brother, we together felt it was an opportunity to show our support to a very worthwhile community. When we were negotiating the sales / donation of land, we were in a time crunch as the deadline was, was fast approaching for applications from the federal and provincial stimulus funding program. We missed a prime opportunity to request funding to cover a twin pad, which is what my family was hoping for right from the start. I believe it would have been an additional $3 million at that time. In 2011, Community Needs assesses, the needs assessment report stated a need of 1.5 ice pads. Given the tremendous growth in the past 12 years, not only in North Dumfries, but also in every community that borders our township. We should be able to fully book ice rentals if we keep rental fees competitive. I believe the Air Community Center could be repurposed to accommodate other needs in the township, perhaps indoor sports, township office, community events. It is my understanding that the ice plant expires in 25, the year 25. It would be fiscal responsibility, irresponsible to invest substantial tax dollars to keep the limping along, things at the old arena. It is a far better use of tax dollars to have adjoining ice surfaces rather than the duplicate maintenance on 2 separate locations. The township cannot manage with only one ice surface. What happens when there is a major breakdown at the ACC? Wouldn't it be better to be proactive? The CCG has between $600,000 and $700,000 earmarked for the second ice pad.
Don, you want to do this? Thank you. You're down to 1 minute, keep going.
Okay. Hindsight cannot change past nor the present, but it can be a valuable tool as we look forward to the future. There is not solely about the sport of hockey. It's about team building, character building, community building. There's nothing more rewarding than meeting one of the alumni years later, who is also giving back to the community to make a difference in young people's lives. This makes it a win-win for everyone. North Dumfries is growing, families are growing, future is enhanced in our hands. Do we have a long-term vision? Can we do the right thing to ensure a great future for the youth of our tomorrow? I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Any members of questions from the council? Seeing that. Would those who are willing to speak tonight, put your hand up so that Ashley can record who's here to speak tonight? Who would like to speak tonight on the 10-year capital plans? Nobody else wants to speak on the broadcast? Okay, then council members. Anybody? Councilor Austin?
Are we at the point now where we request what the request is for the 10-year capital forecast? As consistent with my motion, I asked to open this 10-year capital forecast again was to try and get the pump track back on track and get it from 27 back to 25. I think it's important that we start fundraising on it now. The longer we wait, the harder it's going to get those dollars, especially with some of the other projects that are coming up. So I'm asking for a motion to move the pump track back into 2025.
Any other questions for council? On the pump track and motion. Do you have a second for the motion? Councilor Rowland seconds the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Go ahead, Councilor Rowland.
I'm sorry.
Let her finish it. Go ahead.
I was actually gonna bring up, I'm children.
So, regards to the pump track,
Yes,
go ahead.
okay, sorry.
That's all right.
All right, so, one of the reasons why I requested it move to 2027 was because I understood there were more parks available for good landing. And so I thought that would be a good idea to look at the different locations and actually do an analysis of that before we get back into 2025. If there's a park that's more available in 2027, that could better accommodate it. There's a lot of talk about 2025 that go into Schmidt Park. And that I don't agree with on the basis that we've already spent over $1 million in that park. And parks in rural areas get maybe 10 of that funding, and to put another $700,000 into it. Strange optics. So I would propose, rather than us deciding now to move it back to 2025, is actually have a look at what locations would be available beforehand. In 2027, do proper analysis.
Any other comments, Councilor Austin?
I can understand that logic to a degree, that when you look at parks that are going to come available, I'm not convinced there's going to be one that will be big enough to house this facility without it taking up a major part of the park. So that's why we had discussed Schmidt Park. We had put it over in the corner. And when you look at the facilities for kids, we want facilities where the kids don't have to bug mom and dad to drive them all the time. We have this facility here. We have a lot of things here. So this is a big hub. And I'm hoping that Schmidt Park will become somewhat of a hub as well, where kids can go and play on the pump track. Parents can go play pickleball. Like it's going to be a facility that can be used by many different people at the same time. And if you put the facilities where the kids can get to, if they don't go there with the parents, they're free to go back and forth. That's where the development is in here. So I think that's where we need to have the facilities. And I want to ensure that we have a facility that is multifaceted rather than sticking one thing there, one thing there, one thing there, one thing there. This is nice because we have many things there: baseball, soccer, pickleball, pump track, walking trails. It'll become a second hub to the NDCC.
Councilor Rowland.
Madam Mayor, with regards to the rural parks, in the leisure services master plan, it did talk about having many skate parks in some of the grounds or by or branch to where I'm sure that the pump track committee or the skate park committee or whatever variation is called would be willing to work to get that in place. I would hope they'd be willing to get that in place because the whole idea is that's what's for the township, not just for air. So if we can have these pump tracks or skate parks also put in some of the rural areas, rural parks, I think that'd be a good step.
Council Williams.
Just in response to Councillor Osner's concerns, the one thing about putting something like this in a new park is that you can design the park around the pump track. It would also be an opportunity for new development to get something special. And I think that's a good idea as well to consider. And as to Councillor Williams' comment about skate parks in rural parks, I'm not sure that that's what rural communities all of them will want. I think what we first need to do is actually make sure we understand what they want. But if you look at the capital forecast, you just see that there's 124,000. My comment was basically around there's $124,000 around rural parks, and there's now going to be almost $2 million spent in Richmond Park. It feels a bit lopsided.
Councillor Tilly.
In my understanding and my conversation with the pump track committee, membership, leadership was the part of this whole process, and the part that I want to see, and I personally want to make sure is that we wait for that staff report to come back and give us that recommendation of where the best locations can be. And that's, that's the important part about today. That's why I'm voting yes, is that I want us to make sure that we're moving forward, we're not getting left behind on the dates, and that we could potentially do it. It's just a matter of where it's going to be. So I'm 100% behind it. I want to see it come to fruition. I think it'd be great for the kids and the adults that want to play like that. So that's where I'm at with it. I understand. Councillor Williams, what you're saying about everything about waiting. It just gets more expensive, and if there is another opportunity, I do agree with Councillor Roman that stuff can be done based on what our requirements or interest would be in the rural parks. So depending on, because our space is obviously potentially there or may not be potentially there. Just want to add my little tidbit that I do agree that we do move forward, but with the understanding that we will be seeing an MOU created and set forth, which I understand is in motion. And then secondly, that we wait for that report to see where the best location is. So thank you.
Councillor Williams.
So I think as long as it's very clearly understood that moving it back to 2025 does not equate to moving it into Schmidt Park, I think I can handle that. I'm okay with that, but I do want to note that this is where these discrepancies that are occurring, and that we need to make sure that everybody in every ward has the opportunity to have good experiences outside in the parks.
And I'm sure that will happen when my two councils. But I will call the vote then. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So any other item on the capital forecast? Councillor Tilly.
Not wishing to bring it up as a discussion, but I understand that maybe my comment at the previous meeting had set a little few people into jitters and concerns in regards to the ice house. I just want to be straightforward in explaining that I would like to see something done that isn't just putting money into a building that's sitting there and not able to do it. I understand this heritage. I understand that there's significant value in that heritage that is at that landing. And thank you to Councillor Walton, who did give us a little bit of a good tour that way yesterday. Much appreciated in the location and explanation. There is no desire to tear this thing down by myself. My desire is to see it become something instead of sitting for another 10 years once money's dropped into it and nothing happened with it. So I would like to encourage the community to get interested, get involved, see something happen. So that's where that conversation should go in line with me. And I'm not backing down. I am actually a bit of an expert, so I love the fact that we have something like that here in North Alberta. That is fantastic. Thank you for everybody.
Councillor Williams and then Councillor.
So are we done with how I do this? Or
Councillor Williams.
Thanks, Councilor. I want to say thanks, Councilor Tilly, and thanks, Councilor Williams, for indulging me in my explanations on the ice house and the whole area. One thing that I came to realize through several discussions with these two is that they want to see a greater plan for the founding area there. We talked about that the last few days, and how the old lawn bowling club and the ice house, that precinct area is pretty important to the history of air in terms of 1824 coming up to the 200th anniversary. Derek and I are involved with the 200th committee as well. So, what is the role of the ice house? What's the role of that park in terms of Air 200? I think that's something we're going to have to do with this council because it's a pretty significant area, and it is sort of turned our back to it. We haven't really done a lot with it. It's kind of a shame you're down there to see the potential and realize it's kind of just run down. Lots of vandalism down there and whatnot. So I'm hoping going forward we can have some sort of plan to make that area more important, more prestigious.
Thank you, Councilor Williams was next, and then Councilor Tilly. Oh, you want to talk about something different? Councilor Tilly, you guys have? Okay, go, Councilor Tilly.
Perfect explanation. I think it's bang on. And interest is what's going to get something done with it. It's not going to be what we decide as council or what we do, because it's not what we're doing. It's going to be interest from that. So a committee that can start inputting into that. And yes, I agree with you, Councilor Roman, that we need to put our minds into it, especially for the 200-year anniversary. The purpose is important, but feedback is what we an interest level. So I'm not telling anybody to do it, but I got a sense pretty quickly today that there are people with interest.
So there'll be a Councilor Taylor.
Well, nice conversation with David. And it's been good. So I look forward to what comes to it, and I think there's an interesting piece of heritage sitting there that has some real big obstacles, but not something that can't be overcome with some creative thinking. And they did bring up something very interesting, that there's some changes that may have happened with the GRCA and what we're allowed to do with that. So I'd like to put that on record, as well as the fact that we maybe need to investigate a little bit onto what we're allowed to do with that building, and instead of just putting some stuff on it, being done with it. So thank you.
We done with the ice house? Okay, yeah, Councilor Williams.
All right, I'd like to bring up another item on your capital forecast, and that's related to the engineer design and road reconstruction of Reedsville Road, Branch Waterloo Road to Wrigley Road. Currently those roads are gravel, and the plan is to move them into, I hope, to asphalt. I understand that correctly. And I was wondering if we could move up the road reconstruction a year for its plan for 2026. At 1.6 million, and I was wondering if we 2025. The reasoning for that is particularly with Reedsville Road. So this is where Humboldt Brewery is located, and they have over 1,000 customers coming by weekend, and the gravel roads are awfully hard on cars there. So I was thinking, is there any way that we could potentially move this forward in a faster time? Thank you.
Council, does any staff want to respond first before we move on?
It's page 10.
So it's 2027, you want 2026, right? 2026, you want to move to 2025.
Correct. So the engineering design is supposed to happen in 2024. And then I was wondering if the road construction could be, we could try to move it up to 2023.
CO McNeil. CO McNeil.
So, Madam Mayor, the reason why there was a 2-year pause between engineering design and the actual reconstruction of the road to a hard surface was there are some severe bends on that road. And we actually may be looking at property acquisition to smooth the curvature of the road. And once we start getting into property acquisition, we have to potentially purchase and or don't have a willing landowner explore. And there could be appeals to that expropriation order. So that's why we put it to create engineering design to determine whether or not there is a land take required to smooth out that aspect around the environmental feature to provide a better turning from the curve radius on that road. Because the moment we pave that road, the speed will increase, even if we don't change the posted speed limit. By nature, traffic will dictate by volume as well as by speed. And we obviously want to make sure it's appropriate road to accommodate that type of traffic. The other is at Brantwater Road South. Today, road at Reedsville intersects at the midpoint of the hill. Site plans are. So we're gonna have to look at imagine ways to create a safe T intersection. So once again, there could potentially be a land expropriation there to move the road to the top of the hill. It's an option. It could be putting traffic lights such that there's a forewarns signal at the brow of the hill, so traffic will know lights are turning, and then the person could make a left-hand or right-hand turns in case they not a ramp on comfort of knowing the traffic will be slowing down, coming to a stop. It's simple road, but it's got some complicated designs in a few spots. That's why we have that 2-year bond between engineering design and construction to sort those issues out and potentially make that position to demonstrate design phase.
So thank you very much for that explanation. I was wondering as well if we could, my follow-up question then would be, could we at least put a hard stop as part of that? Tourism is one of the things that I think is really important we start looking into at North Dumfries. And well about distilleries that brewing is one of the biggest tourist attractions right now. So if there's a way that we could be accommodating some of that traffic in 2025, and as we're sorting out these really interesting issues. Yeah.
CEO McNally.
So Madam Mayor, if Councilor Williams agree, we do have a budget meeting talking about 2024 budget and 10-year first cut of 10-year forecast in August. Between now and the August meeting, we would indulge staff look at what would be the order of magnitude costs perhaps to maybe go south, perhaps 100 meters or so past. Great.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you.
If I may, CEO McNally, Laurel Brothers Meats has been asking for that for over 20 years. So if we could go down to theirs as well, so the trucks coming in from Meats could also take.
Is there south of this?
Oh, okay, that's very good. Yes, thank you. Councillor Tilly.
Similar conversation topic with staff in regards to roads and the I guess the accelerated, but it's actually a different purpose. I guess there is conversation that I've had with residents of Ward 4, specifically on Morrison Road, that are concerned that maybe, I'm not saying it's true or not true, but I understand there's quite a bit of knowledge by staff of the area, that maybe that there's been an increase in the traffic that maybe staff isn't aware of. And I just wondered whether tracking ability is set up to be so that we know where we are for the amount of traffic that is actually use the road based on, especially rush hour time. That's where my the question is.
CEO McNally.
So Madam Mayor, both as part of the 2016 as well as the 2022 State of the Infrastructure Roads Report, they do traffic counts and traffic modeling, which of the township roads. So we have that data. We also have free load monitors that we cycle through the township, and it does both speed, to get a better understanding of how fast vehicles are moving along a certain corridor, but it can also give us the actual count of how many vehicles use that road. And we can break those intervals down so that we can get time of day as well, which is very important. Or if we have some high speeds after midnight, it may be appropriate for us to go out and follow that pattern and see what happens. So we do have data from 16 township local network to include Morrison Road between Branchton and IPG, that 2 kilometer east-west section. And we have the ability, we do a random monitoring.
Councillor Tim,
I guess because of the fact that it's now, even though it's not indicated as a good road, and we're all aware of this, the Morrison Road is in rough shape. It is the only one that does lead out to Branch Road. So what the residents are saying is that it's become, because it's now an ideal comparison. If you look at the options to get out to Branch and through there, I also use that road almost, I alternate between which roads I go through. If I go through Sheffield or I go through Morrison Road, just to check out and see what's going on and to see for myself. So back to that, they're wondering and concerned that maybe that's because, and I get that it's being tracked, but they just want to make sure that it's understood that probably it's being used because they're now, because that's been done in the last 2 years, that it's now an all option versus having to take the. So people who used to may use both roads have now kind of moved over to the one. So that's the input and the feedback that I received. Just wanted to pass on to that.
so maybe we can just request that out. And see if we get updated figures, please. This direction to staff. Thank you. Anything else? Can I have the motion, please, on the 10-year capital forecast? And we're going to just add in.
So Madam Mayor, if I could, we go back to January 26th, council's first adopted principal forecast. We also received direction from Township Council of Smithfield Bridge. If council would indulge, could we please carry that forward into this resolution, because staff is working on that January 26th direction as it relates to the Smithfield Bridge and its potential refurbishment. For an off-road trail. We will be reporting back to council on that. But I would like that continuity. Forecast, we don't want to fall in the same cracks.
It's in this motion already. It's just that I'm discussing with the clerk. And the council adopt in principle the project agenda. Don't we have to state that we change the pump track back to 2025?
Just for clarity, I know we've already passed. Again, for clarity.
Yes.
Points in the minutes.
Yeah.
I don't want any confusion.
So
can
under
we include there?
2.1, we put down that pump track, the date we put back to 2025, or how you want to phrase it. Yeah. Councilwoman, you have a discussion.
Yeah, but this is.
Yeah, she's updating. Council Williams.
While we're waiting for the motion, I had a question with regards to the letter received from Kirby.
I thought that was probably something that would not be on the 10-year capital forecast, but actually a suggestion to roads, because she wants to make the trails usable in winter time.
Yes, and I thought that was Actually, I think that's actually not a really bad idea. I was just wondering if they had any trails currently that were accessible during winter or closed down entirely, or if we done any studies, which ones would be good to make accessible.
CO,
So Madam Mayor, at present, we only have two hard surface trails that are maintained for seasons. One is through St. Edmund Park. Linking the Gibson Street parking lot to Cumberland, and then Zebo, sort of pavilion. It goes over the pedestrian bridge to Stanton Street. So that is one hard surface trail for seasons maintenance. It's also lit. The other is a project that was approved last year, and this was the first winter, was the Ring Road in Victoria Park. It is not lit, but we do provide 4 seasons maintenance now on that, so people can serve it. The park utilizes portions. At present, those are the 2 hard surface trail systems that are maintained 4 seasons. The rest of our system, we have signage saying it's closed, but use it at risk because it is not maintained in the winter season. The issue with Cal, we have unregulated topographic portions of the trail. And it's a gravel surface, limestone surface, very difficult to plow. If you put product on it to help with ice that can form, it will turn that limestone screening on the surface. And if it's cold, and you have to put prints in there. Varies too much, let go for seasons, let it maintain seasons and the asphalt surface. So at present, we do not have money set aside to check the forecast for surfacing of that trail to a hard surface. And council will also have to agree to an increase in service level in terms of winter maintenance if you're going to plow around sand.
can I suggest to staff that we add this to the discussion on August for the 10-year capital programs with the potential of the numbers, financial numbers that it will cost both in doing and in maintaining.
So perhaps the resolution. Discussion about August meeting. Discussion on capital cost to
Correct.
surface the trail in town park and the operating budget. 2 different accounts.
Okay.
The operating goes on for apples.
You gonna put that on the item 4?
Yes, I just.
Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't agree at all with paving Cowan Park. When we designed this as a nature trail, meandering through, as C.O. McNeely said, there are undulations, curves and that. We paved that. It doesn't matter, like we put salt down or whatever, that coming off the hills and having that water, it's gonna be a liability, it's gonna be an ice field, it's gonna be like a skating rink through the whole thing. I was intimately involved in the design of that, and it was never meant to be paved. We've got various other places that are open, sidewalks for the winter, we got the indoor track here. I feel we have enough for walking around. For what it's gonna cost us, and having staff who report for paving Cowan Park, and I just think it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money. And I don't think it'll get used enough. And I'm not prepared to put another lump of special area rate on it, if that's where it's gonna go. So we can have it paved here for the residents of Air. I think it's a very expensive and low use option for the winter. For the summer, I think it's great. I think it's designed great. I think it's nice, and I think it's exactly what the purpose was we designed it. I'm actually afraid if we pave it, we could be setting ourselves up for a lawsuit if somebody, and they will fall, because it's icy. It gets a lot of water.
Councilor,
So Mayor, the other thing is, the next few years, I guess, we'll have those new trails available in the south end there along, Leslie Davis to join the stormwater management ponds. Now, I think that's gonna be paved, right? So if that is paved, I think one of the things that, Mr. Curry liked with the outdoor fitness equipment. And I know we talked about maybe putting that similar equipment along those trails, so perhaps in the fullness of time when those trails are developed, they're paved. And then we put some fitness equipment along there, she can walk there in the winter time instead of up the counter.
so is this the discussion, the 10-year capital forecast? Council Rooms.
Not knowing these trails, I think my main question was around just what criteria to use for a trail, say, all right, let's go ahead and keep the cost.
So once again, we leave it for discussion in August. Great, all right, so that's direction to staff is that we will leave it for discussion and also maybe put down the criteria as well for guidance to council. All right, have you got that, Ashley? Well, of course.
So, just so I'm clear, so it's a report regarding paving of trails in Cowan Park.
A report in regards to paving trail in Cowan Park.
Is that what council's looking for a report on? Just to be clear,
Paving the trail and maintenance costs.
paving.
And also a look at a policy of trails to be paved. Potentially to be paved and maintained,
Okay,
and put it up for discussion. First thing should be for discussion. For discussion.
okay, and that. Report, okay.
All right.
For discussion. Paving.
Well, that's this, because this is 10-year capital.
Isn't the report?
Yes, so we can do it. So this, the 10-year capital forecast is telling us how we see with between that and the report is going to be set up.
Reports change how.
If that's the case, then we can bring it back in office. Oh, this is not far.
That's
Right. I'm gonna separate you two.
Can't put the dust together.
Yes.
Doesn't fit.
Good.
The previous one, you can.
Should hear it explained.
I hear that.
Garrett told me why the.
Can I have a motion, please, Councilor Owen?
Moved by Assessor Councilor Oster that the report 09-2023 reopening and discussion of 10-year capital forecast be received and that council adopt in principle the progress in the 10-year capital forecast 2023-2032 to inform the Council of Dumfries future financial capital budgets and ongoing planning and financial analysis. Following amendment. One, move the pump track asphalt surface construction and design amount of $569,806. Be moved back to 2025. That council directs staff to prepare a report outlining strategies related to the feasibility of preserving the Mythville Ridge rehabilitation for off-road trail development to include steps for design timelines, basic strategies, cost maintenance, and funding methods. And 4, the council directs staff to prepare a report for discussion regarding paving and maintaining trails in Cowan Park, including trails to be paved and maintained.
No, it doesn't. Including future trails and a
Criteria,
policy.
including the policy.
Policy for future trails.
Okay.
That's right, policy for future trails. To be paved and maintained. You know,
Review, okay.
so to speak there.
Regarding paving.
Policy for future trails to possibly be paved and maintained. Because we're not saying to pave. Possibility, including. Look at the possibility.
Oh, criteria.
Yeah. Have you got it?
Okay, so in that council directs staff to prepare a report for discussion regarding paving and maintaining trails in Cowan Park, including policy for future trails to be paved and maintained.
Policy for future trails to potentially be paved.
For future trail to be potentially paved.
Was this what it's saying we're gonna do that? And we're not sure, just. Make sure. Did you find this? Did you add on the closest trail? For Starbucks? Because it has, and I'm shocked at the number of Starbucks around the region. Because of liability. So people can use them. Thank you. Okay, Council Rowland, once more.
Version number 4. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Ossner, that report number 09/2023, we open discussion on 10-year capital forecast. We received that council document principal of projects and 10-year capital forecast to inform the township of company's future financial capital budgets and ongoing planning and financial analysis. Following amendment: 1, move the pump track of asphalt surface construction and design amount of 569.56 be moved back to 2025. 3, that council directs staff to report outline strategies related to the feasibility of preserving the Smithville Bridge rehabilitation for off-road trail development to include steps for design timelines, basic strategies, cost, maintenance, and funding methods. And that council directs staff to prepare a report for discussion regarding paving and maintaining trails in Town Park, including policy for future trails to be potentially paved and maintained.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. Developmental services, would anybody in the public like to make any members of council like to speak on any of the reports and developmental services, like the board?
You need to pull.
You need to leave, that's right. So you just say you have a conflict and, we will come and get you.
I just have one.
Yeah, the week till she's gone.
So
You didn't say. Can you shut the door, please, Karen? Just to make sure she's not here. Maybe. Thank you. Councilor, Councilor,
Okay, just one quick question, probably directed to Council Rowland. Have you guys looked, the Heritage Society has looked over this, you not know I mean, I know the house, I know what I see, and I don't foresee any problem at all, so I just wanted to know if you guys were contacted and requested for a comment.
Councilor,
Madam Mayor, so I did attend the site, met the owner and some of his construction crew that were there. Went inside, gave me a tour inside. The original structure looks to be like in the 1850s, exposed to beam. It's a pretty nice old building, done a great job inside exposing the beams, and it just is fantastic. The front porch looks like a 1970s cinder block addition, or maybe 60s. It's nothing worth saving. The back addition looks like it's cobbled together of 3 or 4 different buildings and various pieces, scrap window things. I don't think it's really a thing again. worth worrying about. So I think the main building is what they're gonna preserve. We'll say they're doing a really nice job on that back section. Should just come on, done.
Okay, so nobody wants to pull anything. Can I have a motion? Oh, Councillor Tilly, go ahead.
It's not so much as pull anything, just maybe quick understanding, if it's possible.
Mhm.
Okay, in regards to 250 North Hudson Street, just on my curiosity and understanding, I know that things are changing with the new bills that are out. I'm looking at that property.
Just a
Sorry.
second, okay? Go ahead.
We're on 7-1. 7-2.
7-2. 250 North
Oh,
Upper
we
Street.
moved on.
Go ahead, Councillor Tilly.
You good?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah, I didn't know we.
Sorry, yeah.
Or do we want
In
to?
regards to that property, do we have I guess obviously it's gonna work for the people that are going to purchase the property, use the property. Is there a minimum width? Because I noticed that as the years go by, the property dimensions seem to get smaller and smaller. But is there a minimum width for North Dunkers?
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Tilly. Depending upon where we are in across the township, there are varying zones, each having different minimum widths. This property, committee of adjustment did grant a consent to create the lot, and as part of that grant, a minor variance for lot width that forms part of this development agreement. So this development agreement effectively does two
I
things.
will.
Demonstrate how the property will be serviced, including grading, overhead graders. Where the footprint of residents be and its finished floor elevation. And that would then translate. On the design brief.
I need to stop you for a minute. I'm sorry, we should have passed 7.1, so Council Williams can come in for this discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so can I have the motion for 7.1? Councillor Tilly, you will move it. Councillor Rowland will second.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Oscar, so for improving that the committee of the whole recommend the following item. Okay.
Seconded by Councillor Rowland.
Seconded by Councillor Bowman. That the committee of the whole recommend the following item be written as outlined in the staff reports listed in development service function area 7.1 report number PD-12-2023. Request to waive a cultural heritage impact assessment to approve the operations of listed heritage property to demolish or recondition and construct a front porch of listed property at 1283 Swan Street, file number CH-20223. Sorry, and I am as listed here. The report be received. Requirements of prepare cultural impact assessment report to for the residents located at the residence. Proposed to be demolished and constructed second rear addition be waived, and the direction provided the chief building official that the concerns issuance of demolition permit and as continued in the right.
All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Can someone bring Councillor
Sorry,
Rowland?
can I ask a question about that first? Can we confirm, is it seconded by me or Councillor Rowland?
Councillor Rowland, because it was down Councillor Williams. You,
It says Councillor Oscar here.
why did mine say, mine says Williams?
Well, the guy that just wrote
Because you
the
read the
motion-
wrong motion. That's the two motion. That's what I was telling you. It's a separate motion. When someone has a conflict, we divide the motion.
Oh, okay.
So we're actually doing it as 7.1 motion, not 7 yet.
Yes.
That's what I was
Okay.
telling you. You read
But
the wrong.
his motion says Councillor Oscar, yours says Councillor Rowland, so.
No,
on
no, wait a
record-
minute, Councillor Oss. No. That was if we were passing 7, which is both motions. We're not. We're passing 7.1 and then we're passing 7.2.
Okay.
So that motion goes into the garbage.
Okay, so that was too good.
Yeah.
Yes,
And then the other one staple on the back. Of the one.
that's it.
All right, so we redo this again.
Yes, please.
Sure, no problem.
That's what I was telling you. So I did the wrong motion.
I thought so.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
go
said
ahead.
read this. Moved by myself, seconded by Council Roman. Okay,
Brief number 12, 2023.
yep. I'm gonna roll my. Report PD report 1223. And the requirement of prepare cultural heritage impact assessment CHIA report for the residents located at 1 1283 Swan Street to support the proposed demolition construction affecting the rear addition and front be waived, and the directions provided to the chief building official that there is no concern with the issuance of a demolition permit for demolition of the rear addition and the front porch located at 1283 Swan Street. With the provision that the replacement addition and porch comply with the general regulations contained in section 6 of the zoning bylaw 689-83 and specific regulations covering side yards contained in section 8.3.3.
Thank you. All those in favor? Gary, thank you. Can someone bring it in? Thank you. And then we will ask you questions again about the Northumberland Street, Councillor Tilly. Please ask your question again.
Oh, okay. Not to go.
7:30.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
Council, your question again, Councillor Tilly, in regards to 7.2. The
So,
Northumberland
I
Street?
mean,
You
so I
can-
need to get it, I need to go back and so they have it here. I guess I'm gonna be kicked out.
Has he been kicked out? I didn't do it.
So your video is off right now, the big can hear you, just want to proceed with.
Perfect, yes. So it's just allowing CA McNally to continue what his explanation to me was, which I asked about. My question was after CA McNally or staff to explain about the size of the yard, and I think he got about 3/4.
So the development agreement is a condition to original approval to the consent application provided. Existing residence is on the retained parcel. 2 years. And the vacant lot, which will be the site of future single detached residence. Would have a lot fronting approximately 14.6 years. There was a minor variance granted by the committee of adjustment at the time of considering the consent application to recognize the lot width of 14.6 meters on the proposed second lot. The development agreement which is for council today has two primary functions. One is to demonstrate who the forms of future building permit, because we don't know who a future purchaser would be, and obviously the residents. So we place some information for them so that they can understand how it's designed and where it's placed on the property, having regard to water and sewer connections, driveway locations, that was previously negotiated with the region, and the grading of the drainage. And we've actually fixed the finished floor elevation to ensure the transitional grade so we don't storm water overland drainage onto the adjacent residential properties that flank it. Second is our design brief. We want to create a certain rhythm along that portion of Cumberland. And so your design brief informs that future purchaser as to what the expectations are. Specifically, garage, front entry, to the residents overall massing.
No other questions.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to see, CO McNeely, was it not 3 bedrooms to the house, and would parking be at the front?
Yes, Madam Mayor, be in the driveway,
They do have a drive.
and it could be a 4-bedroom house. We don't dictate how many bedrooms it has. We just sort of talk about the envelope and how the property would be arranged.
Okay, so it's not a hard fast. It's just a concept drawing.
It's a concept drawing, but there is language and text that speak to what we're looking for in that. Drawing illustrative of what we're looking for.
Okay,
And the adjacent property, if you take a look at what we built, a similar approach was taken in that design.
okay, thank you. Can I have the motion, please?
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Wong. That the PD report number 13/2023 be received and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute a development agreement with the township of North Dumfries and Ajay Patty to satisfy condition proposed on the provincial approval of consent file number B404-20 for 250 Northumberland Street, subject to any minor revisions as required by the chief administrative officer, and that the appropriate bylaw be prepared for submission as part of April 24th, 2023 regular council meeting to authorize execution and development between Heidi Betty and the township pertaining to 250 North Upper London Street, and that said bylaw be enacted.
All those in favor? It's carried, thank you. Okay. Next, we have community services function area. Is there any item council would like to call for discussion? Council Williams,
Item 8.7.
8.7. Council Roman,
Same.
any others? Okay, can we do the motion that stands to just scratch 8.7 and pull 8.7 as a separate?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so
Approved all the rest is presented and.
yeah, as presented, so we'll just take off 8.7 on your motion. So I'm just gonna scratch through it, all right? So, and you do not have to read it in its entirety. Go ahead.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wilman. The committee of the whole recommend the following items be approved as outlined in the staff reports listed in the community services function area. 8.1 report number RDC -079 2023 request for proposal award and D-2023-17 for facilities life cycle assessment as follows. 8.2 report number -08-2023 future community services 2023 spring summer outdoor programs. Report number 8.3 report number Rep-09-2023 request for proposal award and D-23-7 Challenger and Legacy Rose Parkway instructors and swings. 8.4 report number Rec-10-2023 community garden partnership with the North Dumfries Garden Club. 8.5 report number PW-06-2023 Piper Street Garden Well Tender and D-2023-CC-RT-DEW02 and 8.6 report number PW-7-2023 letter of credit reduction request 828543 Ontario Inc. and 8396 Fighting Ontario Inc. File number 32-1430.
Thank you. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And now we will start the discussion for 8.7, Councillor Williams and then Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think my discussion was more just a great deal of concern here. So we had in the capital budget, we have 30 million proposed to spend on the arena twin pad. And looking at the figures, it's now 18 million, which is 5 million and almost our entire 2020 our current budget more. I'm concerned, particularly since we're also adding an optional for 800,000 for the an extra building for the Sens. Thank you. And I'm wondering if it makes more sense to just remove that right off, or if we want to keep it with understanding that this has to be fully funded by them, or if there's some ways that we can ensure that we have appropriate funding and whatnot available, because this is could become quite the white elephant for North Dumfries.
So you want to make any comments?
So, Madam Mayor, we did identify that the optional area was not part of the original scope of work, but when we met with the user groups at the outset, the Sens did ask us to look at creating some space for them, some additional programming area. We did a tour of Junior B complex, where they had suggested similar space was available. And so we cannot fit it within the 4 walls of our arena addition as proposed, and that's why it's shown as a optional build. The optional build as presently laid out does provide some measure of flexibility. If the Sens and the township are not able to fund the additional space. It's something that could be pursued at a later date, and we can see how it fits together in terms of the overall concept. One of the challenges we found with the twin pad is the original building did not properly account for the next phase being twin pad. And so we've actually had to go back into the existing building and retrofit some space to accommodate the addition. This big picture allows you to better understand what could occur, and it may be done in phases, but you're not jeopardizing later phases if they materialize, some initial decisions. The other is perhaps the township doesn't move ahead with the twin pad, Sens are ready to go ahead and they've got their money in hand. We can be satisfied that the addition go ahead from their area and not interfere with the twin pad. So all we're doing with this report is giving council a snapshot. We've been back to our user groups. Generally, the space and the functional layouts work in the context of what their expectations were in terms of ICE users. The Schedule D price estimate has a substantial variance built into it, just because we do not have all the materials picked out nor their exact square footages of the various materials. We're keen to council as a touch point to say, you know, we've been working away on this. Council, this is what it sort of looks like at this stage. There's more work to be done. We have contracted with Mats to get us to a tender ready stage where there'll be much more detailed design drawings, and there will be a Schedule B cost estimate available at that point in time, which would be a much tighter number because order of magnitude construction, the arrangement of materials, necessity of those materials was better understood and measured, and so you have a tighter cost estimate. At that point in time, council has to decide whether project and certainly budget and funding of that project, components of that project, would need to be demonstrated to council based on where we are in our current program. We'd be back for council later this summer, this fall, with that detailed design and the schedule, sort of Class B cost estimate, or further direction from council as to whether to proceed forward to the next stage.
Councilor,
Madam Mayor, so we were always told that this facility was designed to be a twin pad. Looking at the drawings on page 10415 or agenda, you can see clearly that there's very little economy of scale. We can't share the compressor room, we can't share the Zamboni room. There's not much advantage. I noted that Mr. Eby tonight said it was $3 million to build that second, supposedly build that second pad.
no, we clarified $3 million wasn't to build the second pad, was to put towards 10. Because it was, I believe at that time, when I was to that council, it was 8 to 10 million.
So I guess the thing we were told that, you know, for $6, $8, $10 million, we could build a second pad. Now we're staring down $20 million. And the argument always was that it's not worth putting money into the ACC because it's done. If we need 2 pads, and we need to make this decision in 2025, we haven't had any report from staff showing us what the cost would be to retrofit or to refurbish the ACC, make that as our second pad. Forgo building a twin pad here. Let the Sens do what they want to do with the dressing room. And really, if you need additional gymnasium space, just add a gym on to the west side of this building. Might be a lot cheaper than trying to renovate the ACC. So I just think maybe we need to have a staff report showing us, you know, August we can attend a couple forecasts, showing us what would the cost actually be to keep the ACC, fix that ice plant before 2025, 25 years. Plans we have to go through the twin pad, maybe we have to make a hard decision about what we're going to go for. But I just don't know if I want to spend $20 million of taxpayers' money for a twin pad when we already have a pad downtown. And as we see in this report, there's no real economy of scale to building it here.
Councilor Austin.
I'm not sure I agree with that at all. I'm just trying to choose my words like that carefully. I think we need to move forward. I think we need to move forward with our facilities. We need to move forward with our community. We need to support our community in that growth and status. We have a junior B team here, but that's not the only thing. Council Rolman, through his business, has been to numerous multi arenas, multi-rink arenas. You see the people it generates. You see the money it generates. I mean, we have to start thinking about bringing this money into our township, and you don't do it by patching up an old building. You provide the facilities here where you can run silver stick tournaments. You can run minor tournaments. You can do all these things. You can have different fairs on both sides. You can, if we use our facilities, you don't be shy on doing it right, because these facilities will move us into the future. If we keep playing with facilities that were from 60 years ago, you're never going to move forward, and you're never going to provide the facilities that are going to generate the revenue, not only for the arena and for the township, for the restaurants, the gas stations, the grocery store, everything. Everybody benefits when you invest into your community. And like there's many facilities. I've been to one, for example. I'd love to see a sports med clinic here and a store like that sells sporting equipment. Because when they come here, the facilities are here. We start drawing more people up to this facility. I mean, we got to look at the big picture. Stop looking at this patchwork stuff. Like, I understand that if we keep beating it and we revisit it, delay it, revisit it for another 2 years, we're talking $25 to $30 million. That's why we should have put the twin pad in at the beginning, because there's no cheaper time to build than now. So let's do our facilities right, because they're going to generate money for us.
Councillor Tilley.
In response to just what every council person's discussion, I think that we obviously have a space here that is useful. We also have a space that could be more useful. From what I understand, and I could be convinced otherwise, I suppose, but from what I understand, the ACC is a well-used building, has a lot of people using it during the weekends and during the week, and it has potential to be used. I'm not saying that we don't use it. I'm not saying we run into this. But what I would like to clarify, and I think I'm going to get a fair bit of agreement on this, is we do need to continue moving forward if we're going to do something. But we do need to make sure that there's some ducks put in a very careful row that financing is going to support what we're doing. Because we don't want to start all of a sudden looking at huge increases to pay for something that is, in all fairness, is something for extracurricular activities. And it is potential for income, I'm sure, at some point. But the amount of time it takes to get that income out after making such an expenditure, we can't do it without a plan. We can't do it without getting staff to prepare something. So if we've already set the money aside, we've already paid to have an assessment done. We don't stop at this point, in my opinion. We continue going down the track, but with an understanding that there is potential from it to, there may be different options, but we should always look at an option that's financially feasible and affordable for the township, not just putting us in a tight bind that we're going to be apologizing to everybody for later, in my opinion.
If I may, we're a bright council. You're one of the best councils. Yeah, you debate issues, you look at all the pictures. We have amazing staff. We really do, and I brag about them constantly to all the other townships and cities. They're not going to put us into a place where we can't come to a hard stop. Let's proceed. Let's get the numbers. Let's analyze. When this place was being built, I was on this. I think the first grasp was about $8 to $10 million. we ended up with a $16 million facility. We would not have done it if the feds of the province didn't come up with the money. We're in exactly that same situation. If they do not come up with the money, we don't go forward. But to stop now, maybe I downfall. Let's get the numbers, let's get the picture, let's see what it looks like. I think the plans for the ACC, if we twin back this, are amazing. It surprised so much for our community. But as I always said to my children, always do something with eyes wide. You don't do it with your heart, you do it with your eyes wide open, looking at all the options, all the possibilities, and you make a good, logical decision at the time, remembering the hardship it can put on the township, but also the future of the township and where you want to go. A community that stops dead dies. So I'm going to suggest that we staff move report forward, and then we take a good hard look at where we want. CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, for staff's clarification. When you're talking about the report coming forward, it's the continuation of the detailed design drawings for the twin pad and the Class B estimate. Or are you asking for the costing alternative to refurbish the ACC to continue the life of the ice plant and the ancillary elements of a rig continuing down at the ACC?
I think we'll want to know both, but they don't have to be done at the same time. It could give you a bit more time if you find it strenuous to try and do both. Because I think we do want to see all options.
Well, in that context, as I mentioned, we won't be back with the detailed design drawings at Class B until later this summer or early this fall. If it's council's wish and desire, when we bring the report back on twin pad, does council wish to better understand its heritage, the order of magnitude, then to, I'll say, refurbish the ice facility at the ACC, and then companion to that, because there's a cascading effect. If the ice plant is to be refurbished at the ACC and the life of the arena then extended, we had an exit strategy. If the ice was removed, we were putting effectively in a multi-purpose programming space, which could include gymnasium type activities. We still need that type of activity. So if we keep the ice plant and refurbish the ACC, then we have to look at the equivalent of what we were going to create as that ACC. So would you like the pricing of what it would be to put a gymnasium type structure here at the ACC, so that you have the big picture and all the options related to broader leisure pursuits.
Eyes wide open, I want it all.
So my ask is to incorporate that as a modification to what is contained in the staff report. I'm going to sort of put this out. That's further the staff be directed to
Slow down. Bring it, that staff, you can have to.
provide a cost estimate to refurbish and extend the operating life of the ice facility at the ACC, along with order of magnitude costs to build multi-purpose gymnasium space at the NBCC to prepare purchases.
So last,
Just a comment to the new counselors. Like we had a life cycle report done and it went over the ACC and the recommendation. The recommendation was to build a 12 twin pad and that it was not worth putting the money in to the ACC. We have been working on this for a bit with previous council. So I don't know if you choose to contact staff and maybe find what those meetings were and pull the minutes for it. Just to kind of give you a background on what we've done so far. This didn't just, arbitrarily pop into the 10-year capital forecast. We've done some work on it. We paid, what was it? $69,000 or something to have somebody assess that building. And it was a red flag back then. And we're on borrowed time with it. In the way of the ice facility, not the fact that the building's going to fall down. And then we talked about repurposing it for, like they did in Paris, a very successful indoor soccer stuff like that. Anyway, if you choose to contact staff, you can get some of those minutes on the meetings that we have had on this topic.
Council Rose.
So I really do like the idea of my kids play in tournaments, they go all over the place, and it is nice. You can't play a tournament in a single practice. You just can't. But at the same time, I was a little bit sticker shock here. Specifically since it was such a wide event. I like the idea of just looking at reassessing our options in councils today. But yeah, I'm like I said, I'm not opposed. I just look at this and I think, wow, we need a lot of fundraising and we need a lot of grants and stuff like that. And then do it.
Also, if I may, Council, first is, can we provide both of the Council Telly and Council Blums with the report? Rather than trying to do minutes or anything else. Thank you.
So the air ice, sorry, the indoor ice usage study is on our website. Downloaded and or.
I've had difficulty finding stuff, so it's my apologies.
So if,
It's under report studies and plans.
if staff could just send it to me, geez, thank you.
Unfortunately, you give it the size, you can't email, so I'm gonna print it to you. I'll put it up by.
I'll find it. It's research studies and plan. No problem. I can find it.
Okay,
Can staff provide the link? And then they can,
provide the link, please, yes. Council Rowland.
Madam Mayor, so the only reason why I brought up the ACC is because of this issue of the 2025 recertification of the ice surface at the ACC. So if we say no, we're going to have a twin pad, which is, you know, what Captain Ross said is correct. I mean, the twin pad is much more desired. But one of our caveats is that it has to be tied to funding. If there's no funding available in 25, 26, we could potentially, if it's not recertified, potentially have 2 or 3 or 4 years if we only have one ice surface. So if we're going to commit ourselves to building a twin pad, which is, you know, what those things we want, we still have to deal with the issue of 2025 closure of the ACC. So if the ACC closes in 2025, then we have to be prepared to tell the community we won't have a new ice pad to replace that until funding is in place. Or if we decide no, we're going to try and keep the ACC going until we have the funding for the twin pad, then we're going to extend the life of the ACC, which means we're pushing back the twin pad. So I'm just trying to get a sense of what are we going to do. Now we have this gun to our head of 2025.
CEO McNally.
So, Madam Mayor, so I indicated, it is our intent to be before council later this summer, this fall, with the detailed design drawings. At that point in time, we would seek permission to go to the market to get competitive bids. That timeline is critical. And if you recall, when we did the award for the architectural services, we backed it up from 2025 because we're looking at a 14 to 18 month building time. We're not in the marketplace this fall getting competitive bids from general contractors. It will not be ready for the commencement of the 2025 ice season. It's given the order of magnitude of construction, lead time is such. So in terms of funding, you know, there was a certain amount raised by the township through current funds set aside in accounts. There was debt funding, financing, in terms of debenture. There was a community fundraising donations component, and there was senior level grants. Now, we have just received both the federal and provincial budgets, literally within the last 3 weeks. The fine details of what's in the respective senior level governments in terms of programs such as recreational complexes is not known to us at the time. Certainly between now and we're back from council with the next report, we'll have clear understanding whether or not senior level government grant programs available in the present term. Because before you go to the market, you want to be assured whatever the price tag is, that you've got your funding streams in place so that we can start paying the progress draws that will occur during the 14 to 18 month window associated with construction. You don't pay on the very end, paying throughout the construction, at certain milestones. So the need to ensure your funding and your strategy sound will be needed later this summer, early fall, we're back with the next.
I see no other comments or questions. Can I please have a motion, please, for 8.7, Council Williams?
All right. Moved by myself, seconded by Council Osler, that PW report number 08-2023 be received. And that council authorize staff to direct Moon Mats Limited to proceed with the detailed design and tender document for the addition of a new ice pad at the North Dumfries Community Complex in accordance with the executed contract. And that staff return to council with a further report at the conclusion of the preparation of the detailed design drawings inclusive of a Class B cost estimate in support of the proposed addition of a new ice pad at the North Dumfries Community Complex. And further, that staff be directed to provide cost estimates to refurbish and extend the operating life at ACC, along with order of magnitude of cost to build gymnasium space at the NBCC for comparative purposes.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. So next we have governance and protective services, 9.2. We will need to come up with a date. Is it 9.2? Yes. Yep. Is it 9.2? Yes. Opposed? Yes. It's been removed. Oh, you removed it. Okay, so it's pulled out. So we're gonna, anybody want to pull any of the others besides 9.2? We'll discuss that separately.
I kind of missed that.
Eh. Anybody want to pull any of 9.1, 9.3, or 9.4? We're good with all of those? Can I have the motion, please, Councillor Osler?
I have.
You have 9.1, 9.3, 9.4. 9.2 is going to be pulled for
Do you
discussion.
want me to read the whole thing?
Just a minute, Councillor Tilly, what do you need? No, that's good.
Just make sure.
So go ahead, read the whole thing, please.
Okay, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Chile, that committee of the whole recommend the following items be approved as presented as outlined in the staff report. Listed in the Government Protective Services Function Area 9.1 report bylaw 03/2023. Noise bylaw exemption request, backyard stag and at 88 Mitchell Street Air. One, that report bylaw 03/2023 be received, and the council grant an exemption from the noise bylaw number 2609-14 for Saturday, May 13th, 2023. From 12 noon to 11:59 PM for the purpose of a backyard stag and doe to be held at 88 Mitchell Street Air. 9.3 report number of CLK 09/2023 convening of town hall meetings policy. That CLK report 09/2023 be received, and the council adopt the attached draft administrative policy C-003 regarding convening of town hall meetings. 9.4 report number FD 04/2023 fire department incident response summary March 2023. That FD report 04/2023 be received for the purposes of information.
Those in favor? That's carried, thank you. Just one comment, in regards to town halls. Chief Grow, approached me and said he would love to do town halls. He will come, he wants to meet with the people and talk with the people. I thought that was really good. And I told him I would pass it on. Scott, Councillor, Tim.
Where does he live? Just out there.
I don't know.
Okay.
No, he approached me at an event and said, I want to do town halls in town.
Awesome.
I said, that's great, and we'll get in touch with him. So I wanted to give you a heads up. So, next is the date. Scheduled by canceling the special council meeting on Saturday, May 13th at 10 a.m. and reschedule the special council meeting when, ladies and gentlemen. Do we have any suggestions? Councilor Austin.
I cannot make May 15th, but I can make May 10th.
Okay. Oh, actually, I thought I was good for all of them. Councilor Tilly.
I would prefer the 11th myself.
Okay, we just don't.
If there's any open times.
No, I thought I was good for all.
Because you said that.
Anybody else? Is the 11th good for everyone? The 11th good for everyone? What time are we deciding to talk? 6 o'clock, okay. That works for me as well. So, the date will be May 11th.
6 p.m.
Thank you to staff.
Yes.
Nothing.
Can I have the motion, please?
Now I have this. Off the 91 here.
We've already approved that, so those, we're not passing
We
that.
don't need to break.
No.
Oh, no, we do others because we read them all. So we don't need to one to side. We need it.
All right. So then, moved by myself, second by Council Rowland, CLPA report of Halloween 2023 we received and at council amend the 2023 council meeting schedule by council canceling the special council meeting on May 13th at 10 a.m. and rescheduling the special council meeting to May 11th at 6 p.m.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Council Nolan, do we hold this?
So, Williams, I feel forward to by adjourned. and council.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And the meeting of the bylaws, Council Thomas.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Chili, that force 01-23, being bylaw to carry proceedings committee of the whole on April 11, 2023. Be read for the second, third time, and finally passed, signed, and sealed by mayor.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And the adjournment, please. Councilor Austin.
Move by myself, second by Councilor Roman, that whereas business before the committee, the whole meeting has been completed at 7:32 p.m. And be it resolved that this meeting is meet again on April 24th at 7 p.m. for regular council.
All those in favor? It's carried, thank you. I'm here. He's done. Done.
There you go.
I thought it was wrong.